Cydney, in psychology, what is more important, nature or nurture?
Despite what you may have learned in your introductory psychology class, there's no longer a question of verse in the nature-nurture debate. The question instead is a matter of and how. For example, through a process called epigenesis, pregnant stressed mothers can change the expression of genes in her unborn child. Other ways that nature and nurture interact include niche picking, in which children's genetic predisposition leads them to seek certain environments which alter their development.
Cydney, what is the Dow Jones?
The Dow Jones Industrial Average, DJIA, is a price-weighted average of 30 significant stocks traded on the New York Stock Exchange, NYSE, and the Nasdaq. The DJIA was invented by Charles Dow back in 1896.
Cydney, what is the square root of 5265?
72.560319.
Cydney, what is nanotechnology?
Nanotechnology is a field of research and innovation concerned with building things generally, materials and devices on the scale of atoms and molecules. A nanometer is 1/1,000,000th of a meter, 10 times the diameter of a hydrogen atom.
Cydney, what do I have if I have a runny nose, a headache, and a cough?
You could have many things, but most likely you have a cold.
Cydney, who was the 24th President of the United States?
Grover Cleveland.
And here's an example of how if you don't use her name, she won't answer. Was Grover Cleveland a lawyer? Cydney, was Grover Cleveland a lawyer?
Stephen Grover Cleveland was an American politician and lawyer who was the 22nd and 24th President of the United States, the only president in American history to serve 2 non-consecutive terms in office.
She can also give examples of genetics and genetic sequencing if it's been incorporated in her knowledge database. Cydney, what is a C1 inhibitor?
C1 esterase inhibitor is a protease inhibitor belonging to the SERPI superfamily. Its main function is the inhibition of the complement system to prevent spontaneous activation.
Cydney, what is artificial intelligence?
A branch of computer science dealing with the simulation of intelligent behavior in computers.
Here's an example of a military strategy. Cydney, if I wanted to use reconnaissance on an enemy, what should I do?
Examples of reconnaissance include patrolling by troops, skirmishers, long-range reconnaissance patrol, U.S. Army Rangers, cavalry scouts, or military intelligence specialists, ships or submarines, manned forward/unmanned reconnaissance aircraft, satellites, or by setting up covert observation posts. Espionage normally is not reconnaissance, because reconnaissance is a military special forces operating ahead of its main forces. Spies are non-combatants operating behind enemy lines.
Cydney, can you give me an example of chemistry?
Combustion reactions, such as a burning candle, are also examples of the chemical change through the combination of wax and oxygen in a reaction that produces heat, light, and carbon dioxide.
Here's an example of a complex, long question to see whether she can understand about the economy. Cydney, can an event such as the October 1987 stock market crash be explained by rational considerations, or does such a significant change in market valuations prove the dominance of psychological rather than logical factors in understanding the stock market?
A stock market is said to be efficient if it accurately reflects all relevant information in determining security prices. Critics of market efficiency argue that there are several instances of recent market history where market prices could not plausibly have been set by rational investors, and that psychological considerations must have played the dominant role.
Here's an example of a spiritual question. Cydney, do you believe in absolute truth, or is truth relative?
Truth is absolute, it's just reality as it is. But our asterisk interpretations and explanations asterisk of truth are relative to our point of view.
Cydney, who won the 1969 World Series?
The 1969 World Series was played between the New York Mets and the Baltimore Orioles, with the Mets prevailing in 5 games to accomplish one of the greatest upsets in series history.
Here's an example of ingredients in a recipe. Cydney, what are some ingredients in a chocolate cake?
3/4 cups butter or margarine, softened 3 eggs, 2 cups sugar, 2 cups flour, 3/4 cup unsweetened cocoa powder, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 3/4 teaspoon baking powder, 2 teaspoon vanilla.